So anyway, I had a couple of viewers asking me to make a video on prospects after unis in UK, because I think previously I had made a couple of videos regarding schooling in UK. Um, so I think it's quite natural that the next stage is uni. And for those of you who don't know my background, so maybe a little bit of intro here. So my husband and I, we have 4 children, and 3 of them gone on to university. In fact, one of them graduated this year, but we still have two children in uni, one in Manchester and one in Maastricht. So we are very familiar with UK uni backdrop, and in fact, both my husband and I, we were educated in UK, so we went through the whole system ourselves. So go back to prospect. I think as Asian families, right, we all single-handedly want our kids to have a degree, right? That seems to be the end goal for many families. And it's not just Chinese families. I believe, Korean, Indians, Taiwanese, Japanese, that seems to be the common theme, right? As parents, we want our children to go to uni because we feel that will give them the best start in life. But is that really still the case though? Admittedly, right, in the older generation, including mine, right, I think that was definitely a good starting place, because I think 20-30 years ago, if you're a graduate, I don't think there was too much difficulty getting a job. And once you were in your first job and you work hard, it's quite easy then to progress through your career and move up the ladder. But I don't think that's the case now, and I'll talk a little bit on why that is. It goes back to basic economics, supply and demand. There are just too many graduates at the moment. I think there's still a lot to be said, right? There's still a lot to be said for graduating from a top uni with a top degree. So a lot of it goes to what universities you go to and the type of degree you pursue. So if you go to one of the top uni in UK, or you go to one of the Ivy League universities in the US, then I think the prospect is still pretty good. I mean, a lot of employers actively seek graduates from those institutions, and especially if you are one of the more in-demand degree, in STEM subjects, economics, in the medical field. Those are still very much in demand. But on the other side of that, if your child pursue a creative degree, let's say in music, in performing arts, in humanities, then their salary, right, will be a lot lower than the average graduates. And that's always been the case, even in my days, right? So that is, the choice of degree, where you go, where your child go, makes a difference. The other thing is, right, let's go back to UK. So with the Brexit, there's a big question mark in terms of how positive or how negative that's going to impact UK. So we've heard that many global companies have moved their headquarters or downsized their operation in UK and instead increased the operations in Europe. And that's why, cities like Paris, Amsterdam, Berlin, those have suddenly become very popular with a lot of companies. In the short term, though, I think there might be a positive spin on this, because a lot of Europeans, they can no longer work in the UK without work visa, so they will have to leave, and then there'll be a shortage of labour. But medium, longer term, I think undoubtedly it leaves a big question mark on how good it's going to be to stay in the UK to work. And the economy matters. I think one of the reasons why a lot of people came back in the 70s, 80s, 90s, right, come back to Hong Kong, and even in China, why it prospered so well, is because the economy was doing well. Where there's growth, right, company will be hiring talents, and then where there's a shortage of talents, then the salary goes up. So it's again goes back to supply and demand. Nowadays, though, with artificial intelligence, technology, the job itself is going down. The number of vacancies go down, but at the same time, the number of graduates go up. So there's a definite mismatch there, and which really explains, right, why, going to university doesn't guarantee a great future. I think for the past 10 years, right, there's definitely been a lot of questions about whether a university education is still worthwhile, especially in the US. I think where the cost of university is just so high, and many young people leave with a degree, but they also leave with huge debts. But this is a headline from the South China Morning Post, which is our main English newspaper in Hong Kong. And that was from less than 2 years ago. And it's really questioning or saying that university students in Hong Kong, they're actually earning less now than, than their counterpart from 30 years ago. And in fact, 1 in 6 actually go into unskilled work. So they're where their education, their university education, really make no contribution to the job they're doing. And that really is a wake-up call, I think. And it's a little very scary for many of the young graduates leaving. And the simple fact of why that is the case is supply and demand, right? Basic economics. This is a chart of Chinese students enrolling in UK universities and looking over a time span of 10 years up to 2017. And the red line shows the Chinese students. And you can see from here that the numbers have tripled in the space of 10 years. And in fact, I reckon if you bring the numbers up to currently to 2019, the curve would still be going up. There are just so many students leaving Hong Kong and China and going overseas for their university education. The next chart is the same for US. And this is more current, going up to 2019, where you can see students from China were just under 100,000 in 2009 to end of last year, where it's going over nearly 370,000 students. So many of these students, once they finish their degree, will leave the overseas destination, be it Hong Kong, be it UK, US, Canada, or Australia, and they'll come back to Asia. Many of them going back to China or to Hong Kong looking for jobs. And you really have to question whether there are that many high-paying jobs for so many graduates. So here, right, is an example between a plumber and a doctor that was used quite frequently in the past few years to highlight whether further education is really that much better than a skill like a plumber or an electrician or a bricklayer, etc. Right? So I think even in Hong Kong, we know that during the construction boom, the manual laborers actually have very high salaries. I heard that the daily salary for a scaffolder was something like 4,000 or 5,000 Hong Kong dollars per day at its very peak, because there was such a shortage of labor in that particular skills. And that's a skill that is necessary when it comes to building high-rise and any other kind of buildings. So during the boom time, the salaries for those type of skills were really skyrocketed. So in this example, right, where now you can Google that quite easily, many people have used that and example between a plumber and doctor, and go into the numbers. But essentially, right, is what they're saying is that a plumber don't have to go through as many years of studying and work experience, right, to become a fully fledged doctor. So they will probably go through 2 years of apprenticeship, and then they come out earning maybe at the age of 18, right? So they can leave school at 16 or even at 18 leaving school and then do 2 years of technical learning at a college, and they'll come out earning at 20 with no debts, and then they will carry on earning, and then there's an assumption there that they will also save as well. So compound interest is at work here as well. But whereas compared to a doctor, they would go through 8 years of full-time studying, and then they need to go into internship at hospital and working long hours. And then even when they start earning, the first 6 or 7 years is actually go towards paying down their debts, which could, in some countries, right, go into hundreds of thousands of dollars in US dollars. So they are really looking at least in their early 30s before they are really fully paid off their debt and start saving and accumulating wealth. So we were talking about, accumulation of wealth. And in this example, right, in many of the scenarios, the plumber actually ahead of the doctors until they get to in their early 40s, right? Because of course, right, the doctors' salaries will go up in leaps and bounds in most cases, right? So in later years, that's where the doctors, the many years of studying really pay off. But in the early years, right, the plumber for many years is actually a lot better off, a lot wealthier than a someone who study medicine. Now, in this example, right, in the latter years, the doctors are seen to be better off. But of course, that doesn't take into example where a plumber can maybe go into their own business, right? And then they hire lots of other junior plumbers and they become a businessman and grow the business in that sense, right? So the sky's the limit, really, in this case. Another point I think, right, that as Asian parents we tend to overlook is that the soft skills. So I think many kids, many parents, right, will be keen to go on special tutoring lessons for the kids, right, on academic subjects like science and maths, Chinese, English, right. But in fact, when you come into the real world, working world, right, it's the soft skills that really determine how successful you are. And by soft skills, I mean things like problem solving, analytical skills, how adaptable your child is, in terms of critical thinking as well. So these are qualities, right, that employers, companies look for when they look at problem solving skills, right? No point going to your company has a problem, and no point you just going through the steps, right? What you learn at school, at unis. You need to be a bit creative when it comes to problem solving. And I think those tends to be skills that we don't really encourage and nurture in our children when they're young. So these are some things that we need to think about a bit more. So in summary, right, in conclusion, I really do think if your kids is clever, smart, you have the money to do so, and they can get into top uni, and they want to pursue a academic degree, then by all means go for it. I still think that is worthwhile. But if your child isn't that way inclined, they are more on the practical skills, then I don't think it's worthwhile sending them to a lower ranking university to pursue whatever degree. Because I've actually heard parents say, well, it doesn't really matter, so long as they are a graduate. No, I think that's the wrong way of thinking about it. That's just wasting your money and wasting your child's time. There are other options that you should pursue in that case. Anyway, thank you. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and share. Bye-bye. So it's probably obvious, but where you go to universities, which uni you go to, what degree course your child take, will have an impact on the prospect and the salaries, the earning power of a child. I think you can easily Google online, and the usual like medicine, finance, or economist graduates, mathematics, science-based, those tend to have better prospects, at least for now. In the UK, there are 140 universities, and university fees are by and large the same for each unit, because there are no private universities, unlike in the US. So for local students, I think the annual uni fee is around £9,000, just over. And for overseas international students, it's around £15,000 per year. So if you're going to pay roughly the same, so obviously, right, you want to get the best value for your money. So I'll suggest that, your child should apply to one of these 24 universities called the Russell Group. So this is a subset of universities out of the 140. And the reason these are considered more elite is because these unis tend to have established a strong research reputation. And a lot of employers see these as better ranking of universities, if you like. So given that is the case, but even within these 24, right, you will see there are ranking within this subset. obviously, right, Oxford and Cambridge at the top, and then next one down you get the London ones, the Imperial, UCL. But regardless, though, I think you know if your child can wants to go to UK for the university education, um, getting into one of these 24 will be a good place to look at, to start considering the degree course.